Every change has a reason, baby, let it come to you. Every soul, every season lives outside of status quo. If we stop believing we're meant to be, expanding our abilities. If the passion's gone, we are doing it wrong. Baby, you and I should start living now. With the whole world at our feet, we could stay or we could leave. There is nothing in between. So baby, we should start living now.
Well, hello guys, I hope you're doing well, and for this week's video I wanted to do something that is still kind of sorta on the travel sphere, but is also really helpful for anyone who is curious about the cost of living in Toronto. I actually thought it would be really cool to do this type of video for other places that I go to on a longer term basis, like Ukraine or Japan, and kind of give you guys an idea of how much the average person spends to live in the city. So in today's video, we are obviously going to be talking about Toronto, and I'm basically going to give you a breakdown of rent, because that is the most expensive thing that you will pay for here in Toronto, as well as obviously other expenses such as transit and food and just other things that well, as a millennial, that I incur living in Canada's biggest city. And at the end of the video, I actually wanted to give you guys a little tour of my apartment, because I'm so happy that I just finished a mini sort of renovation on it, where I just painted everything. I put up some pretty pictures and got a few new things for my place. So I've actually never shown you guys my little apartment, so I thought I would do that at the end of the video. So I moved to Toronto when I was 22 years old, so still fairly young, and about a year before that I was living in Tokyo. I did that long freelance sort of stretch, basically 7-8 months before I moved here. And I remember I was living at the time with my boyfriend in Tokyo too, and we were paying like 1700 Canadian dollars a month that we, you know, split in half for our very small apartment in Tokyo, aka normal sized apartment in Tokyo. And we were even like getting a discount to get that kind of price. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, when we move to Toronto, it's gonna be, you know, so much less expensive than Tokyo, and we're gonna have so much more room, and it's gonna be so great. And at least I was half right. Like, at least the first official one-bedroom apartment that we had in Toronto was actually super spacious. We had a huge living room, we had a nice kitchen, we had a really nice balcony. Like, everything was larger, obviously, than Tokyo, but the price, not so much. But since that time, which is now 5 years later, things have definitely changed a lot. The average price of an apartment in Toronto now, and I'll try and put up some example sort of listings, is around 2,200. Now keep in mind, this is if you want to be living downtown in a really nice place and you aren't taking over somebody's like sublet, because there are buildings that have rent control and that aren't able to, you know, increase the price every year to whatever they want. Like, I live in a rent controlled building now, thank God, where I only see an increase of about $20 every single year per month, but there are apartments who are technically able to charge whatever they want whenever a new lease starts every single year. So now that we've talked about the biggest expense of moving to Toronto, I thought I would give you guys an idea of what my monthly expenses are, so that if your spending habits are kind of similar to mine, you'll have an idea of just how much things cost. And I'll kind of just put it in this general area. So starting off with rent, I'm just gonna round that up to $940. That's all utilities in, other than in the summer, if you want to have an air conditioner, they do charge you about $30 extra every single month. So usually in the 3 months of summer, I'll pay like an extra, you know, $90 or whatever it is for those 3 months, but on average it's $940. And then as far as my internet plan and also the phone plan, I would say it's about $140 total for that. As for groceries, that has been something that has drastically changed for me in the last 2 to 3 years, I would say, where the last apartments that I was living at when I was still in a relationship, the closest grocery stores that we had was like a Loblaws, and then I was also on the like Whole Foods kick, where I really thought that everything at Whole Foods was just, you know, the healthiest thing ever and that I should shop there. So now I have learned how to properly grocery shop and prep my meals, so I'm spending way less money on groceries every single week while still eating super healthy. So I'm really fortunate that I actually have a really awesome local market right near me, where there's this like little shop that sells just produce for about half the cost that you would find it at like Loblaws or something, and it's really good quality. So I'm really fortunate with that, because the majority of what I eat is plant-based. And then I also shop at places like Freshco or like Save on Foods, those types of places where you're literally getting some of the same packaged groceries as you would at the more expensive grocery stores, but for way less. As for transit, this is something that really depends on where you live in relation to where you normally go, like your work or any other kind of errands that you do. When I first moved here, almost every single month I was getting the Metro card, which is like the monthly TTC pass that you can use unlimited on any kind of public transit, and that was costing about $160 a month for an adult. And then if you are a student, I believe they do give you like a $30 discount or something, so maybe it's like $130 or somewhere around there. But now that I'm not serving as much and work from home a lot more, and honestly just like to walk, I decided that getting a transit pass every single month wasn't worth it, and I'd say I just spend probably $60 to $80 a month just with like my Presto whenever it is I do need it. And then the other way that I have decided is also a really great way to get around Toronto is to bike. And I did have a bike that I was using regularly about 2 years ago, which really cut down my costs. Then it broke, and so now this year I think I'll actually be investing in a bike, which yes, will be $400 or $500 for a good one, but it is well worth it if you use it more than public transit. Quick note about getting a car in Toronto. I personally would not recommend it if you just want to have less hassle and less expense in your life, and if you actually live downtown. Like if you need a car, either rent one for the day or whatever you need, or just take Ubers, because the parking in this city is absolutely ridiculous. Licenses in Ontario cost so much more, and there's just so much overhead that if you're living central and don't absolutely need a car for your job or on a daily basis, I honestly don't see the point. Now, as for eating out and entertainment, because let's be honest, that's kind of one of the main reasons that people move to Toronto and pay such ridiculous rent, where you do get an array of fabulous restaurants and amazing events going on, and just all the other things that the city has to offer in that way. I would say that on an average month, I probably spend about like $250, $300 on entertainment and eating out. Like it really ranges if it's obviously somebody's birthday, or if I'm just like going out more, if it's like TIFF or something. But to be honest, a lot of the things that I am able to do in Toronto and have fun with really don't cost a lot of money. Like, I know lots of great places that you can get amazing food at where it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. I like to be out in nature and just go like walk around and stuff. Say that my budget for that isn't that wild, but keep in mind it could be. Like, there are so many amazing, you know, artists that come to Toronto and it's a few $100s to go see them. Or if you are somebody who likes to go to really fancy restaurants, obviously this whole category can get that much more expensive. As for my other type of expenses, I am just kind of gonna group them all together to make it easier. So that's things like the things I do for health, like my gym memberships, or I have like a floating membership where I pay like $40 a month for a float every single month, and things like things for the house or clothing or just little knickknacks here and there that I need. I would say that in an average month, I probably spend around $300, I would say, on that type of stuff. But keep in mind that is different from my business sort of expenses, where now I have this YouTube channel and I have certain kinds of subscriptions for like my music, I have a website, I have my acting sort of stuff that I sometimes have to pay fees for, castings and all that kind of stuff. So all of those things combined, business expenses, I'd probably say I spend about $100 a month on that. So with all of those things taken into consideration, on average, my expenses usually are around the $2,000 mark. Like, some months they might be like $1,900, other months they'll be like $2,100 or $2,200, and that's before I put anything into savings or into investments, or if I have, you know, a larger purchase that I want, like a new camera or, you know, whatever else. So for me to comfortably live just the lifestyle that I'm living now and put money away and have spare money left for the larger sort of purchases, like ideally I want to be making at least $3,000 a month. So I do feel really fortunate that I have this place, and a lot of people are like fear-mongering me to never move out because I have such a good price. But, you know, I do at some point obviously want to have a 1-bedroom so I can entertain and just have more space. So for me to be able to do that, and maybe even at some point have a mortgage or buy an apartment, I would have to be making at least $5,000 after taxes every single month. And that's, of course, if I was living by myself. If I was splitting the rent with somebody, I could technically do that tomorrow. But in singlehood, I would have to be making, yeah, basically $5,000 a month, I would say, to comfortably be able to look after all the expenses. So yes, long story short, Toronto is a very expensive city to live in, and if you are thinking of moving here, I would just try and make sure that you're okay with the expected sort of expenses that are awaiting you here. Of course, if you have a living situation that's not going to be quite as expensive, that will really help, because you can find things like groceries and eating out or entertainment at very competitive sort of prices. Like, basically everything other than rent in Toronto is very competitively priced. It's just the rent that is kind of like the kicker in this whole situation. So if you're able to live with roommates and only pay like $600-700 and you're cool with that, that will go a long ways and really help you. All right, guys, so to give you a tour of my apartment, this is basically the size of it. This is the main room. This is the door right here that you come into. Right over here is the washroom, which we'll get into in a minute, but basically with bachelor apartments, it is just this large open area and the tiniest of tiniest kitchens. So to actually show you guys what it is I ended up doing with redecorating my apartment, if any of you remember how it used to look, the paint was honestly so old, and I can't believe it took me as long as it did to finally repaint it, but I just gave it a new fresh coat of white. I got these really cool canvas prints of my own photographs of all the really cool travel destinations that I have been to, and then this amazing flower piece I actually got on Etsy. And what's actually so cool about this, I will definitely link it down below for anybody interested, is that these flowers are actually like movable. Like I repositioned these about like 10 times before I finally got them exactly where I wanted to, and they keep sticking. And if I ever want to take them with me when I move, I just put them back on the vinyl that they came on. Over here I have my map of the world of all the different places that I have been to, 27 countries and counting. So I have that over here. And then I decided to finally invest in a Nespresso machine, but law of attraction, a friend ended up giving me one for free, the exact model that I wanted, so I was so over the moon about that. And then let me show you my tiny, tiny, tiny kitchen, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, and it basically has like everything I need, but that's kind of Toronto, where usually if you're living in a bachelor apartment, like something will be small, either the washroom or the kitchen, you know, something's going to be small. Thank God that over here I have a large closet. It actually goes fairly deep, but is super messy, so I'm not going to show you guys that. And then over here I also have kind of like a coat closet, which is really nice. And then to quickly show you the washroom, which is nothing crazy, but thankfully I do have a bathtub. Some apartments in Toronto do not. They will just have a shower, but thankfully this one has both. But yeah, that is the washroom. Here's more happy inspirational quotes, and I ended up painting the washroom as well and went a little bit avant-garde with purple instead of just white, but I think it looks nice. And yeah, that is basically my bachelor Toronto apartment. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and it was helpful to you in case you are actually thinking of moving to Toronto, or if you've been curious about what the average cost is for a single person like myself living in the city. And please let me know in the comments down below what you thought about Toronto's living expenses, and let me know as well where you're from and what the average cost of living is there, because I always love learning that type of thing. And if you're not already subscribed, please do so down below. Hit the notification bell so you guys always know when I post a new video. And other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Keep being your own kind of beautiful, and I will see you soon.